Hey you guys, so today I will be doing a review on UOMA Beauty. So you guys might have seen them on Instagram. They're a newer brand. They kind of just released, I think within the past month. I saw them first on Trend Mood and I just really liked the look of the brand. I think they're doing some really cool stuff, super inclusive shade range. So I picked up the Black Magic palette in Allure, which is the kind of like earthy toned one. Got some greens, some pinks, some yellows. And then I picked up one of their foundations, got a concealer, and then I got the Double Take Sculpt and Strobe Duo Stick. I tried to get a little bit of everything from the range. They did have some like matte lipsticks and stuff like that as well, but I'm really trying to cut myself off from buying more lipsticks because I just have drawers and drawers of lipsticks that I don't use. So that one didn't make it into my arsenal today. Okay, I'm gonna start by busting into the palette. I'm gonna prime my eyes quickly and then we can jump on and do this thing. We're ready to rock. Okay, I'm gonna take my little Sigma E45 brush and I'm gonna grab the color Love. And I'm gonna really load that color up on the tippity top of my brush. You can tap off the excess. And then I'm gonna bring that right into my crease all the way across. So I'm basically just adding more product until I see a nice thin, even color all the way across, and then we'll go ahead and blend out later. The colors of this palette actually kind of give me some subculture vibes, you know what I mean? Okay, then I'm gonna grab the color Romantic on my Smith 230 brush. So same thing, loading a bunch of that color on my brush, and then I'm gonna go right over top of like the edge of that Merlot color. And just same thing, bringing that all the way across. That color is actually showing up like so pigmented and like it feels like very I almost want to say like rich, because a lot of colors that are kind of that like light pastel-y coral have like a really kind of like white ashy undertone to them, so they apply like very, very pale, and it like you can't really build it up beyond a certain point. But I feel like the undertones to this is more of like a rich kind of like yellow, so I'm able to really build up that color and make it actually like quite visible. Like that color's pigmented enough that I feel like you could like honestly just apply that like all across the lid by itself and it'd be really pretty. Okay, then I'm gonna take the color Oh Sun here and I'm gonna, ooh, what brush do I want to use for this? Yeah, I'm gonna try it on this one. So I'm gonna use my Smith 235 and I'm just going to kind of get that on the top. Tap off the excess. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's very nice. Okay, I'm going to take that color and I'm going to go kind of right over top of that coral color. Then I'm going to go back over with the brush that I used for my pink, and I'm going to just kind of continue to blend that into each other to make sure it's nice and seamless looking. As seamless as I can do, you know, which hopefully we've all come to understand is not really that seamless. I'm just gonna grab a little bit of a like skin tone eyeshadow. I have to cover this brow bone. It's looking rough. Okay, just grabbing a shadow that matches my skin tone. I'm gonna go over top of that primer up there. And I'm just gonna basically pull it down to where that eyeshadow is. Jumping back to my yellow just to kind of go over top of that and make sure it looks nice and blended with that brow bone color now. I'm trying to do like a very Instagram-y makeup right now. You know what's so funny? I was watching, I watched this lady who is, she's great. I really like her channel a lot. She talks about like veganism and all this different kind of stuff. But she commented on the like James Charles and Tati drama, which obviously like that reached so widespread. So now we have like kind of other communities like being privy to it. I'm taking a little bit more of that pink color. But anyways, she was commenting on that and she was basically saying like the biggest thing that Tati forgot to mention was the fact that James photoshops his photos. And I was like, this is so Like, it was just so funny to me because I'm like, this strikes you as the worst part of this? Like, in what regard? Like, because to me, I feel like there's certain people that edit in a way that feels sneaky, and then there's certain people who are blatantly editing. And to me, James blatantly edits because that's his style, and he's very forthcoming about the fact, I think he's very forthcoming about the fact that he edits his photos because he talks about it and he jokes about it and he posts videos about it and stuff. But it was just funny to me because I'm like, out of everything, this is what you're most concerned about. I'm gonna grab a little bit more of that love color just to build it up a little bit more. She went on to basically say that like the beauty community in general is kind of a shitty community because we're posting videos of makeup looks that no one would actually wear and they're hard to replicate and all this stuff. And I was like, this is so odd. Like it was so interesting hearing how other communities look at the beauty community kind of thing, because that whole like really old school way of looking at makeup, like you're just supposed to use the tiniest amount to enhance your features and stuff. I mean, yeah, there's still people that obviously do their makeup that way, and like day to day that's more so how I do my makeup. But I was like, wow, it's so interesting that people still even though makeup has become so popular and so widespread, it's interesting to me that people still look at it and think that people are only doing it for appearance rather than to be creative, and because like that's their kind of like medium for art. It was just a weird little crossover that I witnessed earlier this week. Okay, I think I need to let this go. I'm just scared to move on to the glitter. Oh, I think I am gonna take a little bit of that love color and I'm going to bring it down to my lash line, just like that. I'm gonna take a little bit of setting spray on my Smith 253 brush, and I'm gonna pick up the color Divine. This guy is glittery, so I'm gonna, ooh, I don't know if that works well with a setting spray. We'll have to see. I'm gonna take my finger instead and just kind of press that on. I didn't want to make a super harsh line with that glitter because I knew it was going to transfer anyways, but I'm just wondering if that's going to look weird or not. Well, too late now. Okay, and then I'm going to take the color Lady of Gold right here, and I'm going to bring that down the center of my lid. Oh yeah, maybe I should have made this. How am I going to save this look? I'm going to have a real think about my choices here for a second. Well, do I, or is it actually okay? I really don't know. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and apply my face now. I'm going to take a little bit of my Becca under eye. Well, should I use this if I'm going to show you the concealer? No, I'll just show you without the concealer. I'm sweating. Okay, so I got this in the shade Fair Lady T2. And I'm going to take some little dibbles of that. So I've been using this guy actually for the past 3 days, 4 days. Yeah, so this would be the 5th day that I've been using it. But I feel like it actually works really, really well. I have tried it with and without the Becca under eye corrector and stuff, and I feel like it still performs well without it. I like the Becca thing underneath because it does like brighten my under eyes a little bit, and I don't like to brighten with like a super bright concealer, but I think it does a good job. I have been dealing with a little bit more pigmentation than normal under my eyes. I'm getting older, as it turns out. I'm gonna spot correct with this guy as well, so I'm gonna grab my little Sigma F69 brush, and I'm going to just kind of dot that, just the tiniest little amount wherever I need some extra concealing. I am getting to be such a pro at ordering my color online. I feel like this color is pretty dang close, I'll be honest. Then I'm gonna go ahead and apply my foundation. So I grabbed shade 2TN for this. And with this guy, I just like to take one pump of it. Normally I would sheer it out, but I wanna kind of show you guys how it looks when it's like how the foundation would look normally. So I just take a few little dots of that guy. Usually one pump is like more than enough. And then I'm gonna grab my little e.l.f. Brush. I think this is like, I think it's called Precision Airbrush. I picked up 2 more when I was down at Target yesterday because I love them for like foundation, but also for blush and bronzer, like cream bronzer and stuff. So I picked up a bunch. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and blend that out. So I just kind of go in like little circular buffing motions and buff that into the skin. I've been wearing this guy as well for the last, like this would be the 5th day. So I'll give you kind of my full thoughts at the end, but just so you guys can see it nice and close up. See what it looks like. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit of that kind of burgundy Merlot color, and I'm going to bring that right underneath my eyes, connecting it with that outer corner. Then I'm gonna take a little bit more of that color Romantic, and I'm going to blend out that Merlot color with it. I'm gonna take that color Love and I'm gonna bring it across my lash line instead of using a liner. So I'm just kind of stamping that on. I'm just taking a little bit more of that color Love on a big blending brush, and I'm just kind of patting it over that outer corner. Then I'll pop on some lashes and mascara in a second, but I'm gonna do my contour while we're sitting here. So I got this contour and highlight stick in the shade 3, Fair Lady. When I first looked at this, I was like, dang, that's pretty dark for a fair lady. And it looks quite dark when you put it on as well, but I feel like you're able to blend it out fairly well. The other thing you can do is take your brush and just kind of put that product right onto your brush to do a little bit of a kind of lighter application. If you feel like it is a little bit too pigmented or just like the color's a little bit too dark for you. And it does give you this really nice kind of like soft diffused look, and it's easy to go back and add more rather than trying to take it away. So when I'm doing my application like that, I have the product on the end of my brush, and I'll start with like a very, very, very light touch, barely touching that product to my skin. And then as there's less product on my brush, I can apply more pressure to really help buff that in. But you don't want to go straight in with all that pressure, because you can kind of apply the product a little bit patchier, and then it's sort of harder to blend out after the fact. So really, really soft, light pressure to start, and then you can kind of get wild. Okay, I'm gonna pop off. I'm gonna go do my lashes and brows, and then we can jump back. I'm gonna pop on that highlighter, and then we can go over my final thoughts. Okay, I'm gonna use the other side of my little contour and highlight stick, which this was so odd too. I looked at this and I was like, oh, that's very golden for a fair lady such as myself, but I feel like it actually applies fine. So I'm gonna take that just on my little finger, and I'm just going to dot that on over top of everything. And that's it. Okay, I'm gonna zoom you guys out and give you my long format thoughts on everything. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So the first thing we used was the Black Magic palette. This is actually well, it's technically my second time using it. I did apply that glitter just like really quickly all over my lid a couple days ago because I really like the color of it. But this is my first time using the mattes and this kind of shimmer and the glitter and all that kind of stuff together. So when it comes to eyeshadows, I feel like you can usually get a pretty good feel for what the quality is like, what you can kind of expect out of them within the first use, whereas like a foundation, a concealer, I like to kind of try it out a couple times beforehand before I give you my full thoughts. The mattes in this palette I felt applied quite well. They blended out pretty nicely. I felt like they all were well pigmented, and here's what I mean. I feel like there's a real trend right now with eyeshadow products to make them as pigmented as possible so that they swatch really, really well, and because people just really harp on pigmentation. But for me personally, I prefer something that I can build up gradually rather than something that I'm gonna put on and it's so pigmented that it's like falling out all over the place. It's like patchy, it's harder to blend out. You can't really go backwards with the pigmentation. Whereas with this, I felt like this was like perfect, very well pigmented in that it applied very true to the pan color. Like this pretty much is the color in the pan, that's the color on my eyes, which is nice because these are some kind of more unique tones. They're a little bit more muted, kind of like that subculture sort of vibe, and it applies that exact same way on my eyes. And I feel like I was able to like build up that color, and it wasn't something where it was so pigmented right out the gate that I was having a hard time blending it out or making it be like a nice gradient. So I really liked that that red color, I feel like that one worked really, really well. The pink color as well, as I kind of mentioned, has like this really beautiful kind of more like yellowy, rich undertone. So it doesn't pull really like chalky and pale on the skin, which is nice. It's gonna translate nicely across different skin tones for that reason. And you can really build that color up to actually see that nice kind of peachy tone. Because when you look at that color close to my skin, you would think that that color's not gonna show up fantastically well, but it showed up really, really beautifully. And I feel like it's a color that I could wear on its own and it would still have a really nice, you know, look to it. So I really liked that one. The yellow had a little bit more translucency to it. I still was able to build it up, no problem, but it wasn't a really, really intense yellow. So I'm just curious how that one would work. Like if you wanted to put that yellow kind of all over your lid or something, I'm just curious whether or not it would be as intense as like the coral kind of was. But for what I was using it for today, I felt like it worked really, really well. Then we had that glittery shade Divine, which like that color to me is so perfect. It's not too coppery. It's not too gold. It's like this really, really beautiful kind of like champagne bronze, and it's gorgeous. It reminds me of the Tom Ford Naked Bronze color. The formula for that glitter isn't my favorite. It's very loose. I feel like is the only way I can really describe it. It almost feels like it needs something binding it more because it is very loose. It does have quite a bit of fallout. Like even now, there is some little glitter kind of still falling out onto my lashes and onto my face and stuff. The shade is beautiful. I just wish that it was something where you could get a little bit more of like an even application and a more precise application because that's so loosely formulated. I don't know any other way to describe it better than that. It sort of doesn't allow you to get your placement really exact, and it just doesn't allow you to get the pigmentation or like the evenness of the application the way that you'd be able to with other shadows that are kind of similar. But it's almost as if when you're applying it on the eye that there's no like shadow to it, like eyeshadow powder. It's almost as if it's just glitter. Like that's how it kind of feels. That's how it sort of applies. And I am seeing a little bit of creasing already with this one, so I don't expect it to last super, super well throughout the day. Maybe that could be potentially aided by using a specific eye primer and stuff like that. But for me, I just feel like I should be able to use you know, any kind of eyeshadow with whatever eye primer I use and not have to pick up something specific for it. But yeah, I think that one is a little bit of a dud for me, just because I am getting a little bit of that creasing. It didn't apply great. It's just not my favorite formula. Then we had the little shimmer kind of formula over here, which applied fine. It strikes me as like a pretty normal kind of shimmer formula. I would have to try it kind of like in a larger area, like maybe all the way across the lid or something to really get a better feel for it. As far as application goes and stuff like that, I didn't have any issues applying it, and it was nicely pigmented and all that kind of good stuff. So all in all, I do like this palette. I think the mattes are more of a hit for me than the glitters, which is unfortunate because there are, yeah, like I think those three for sure are glitters. That one might be more of a kind of glitter slash shadow formula. So the glitters do take up a good chunk of this palette. So that's kind of a bummer because that's not my fave. But the matte formula so far I'm really, really enjoying. I think it just works well. It's really easy to blend out. It's really easy to build up color. I didn't feel like the colors got muddy at all. I feel like you can still kind of see that distinction between the yellow, the coral, and that kind of Merlot color. So the mattes are definitely a hit. The shimmer I think is fine and will work fine. And the glitter is not my fave. Okay, then we tried on the concealer. So as I said, this is the 5th day of me wearing this. I quite like this concealer actually. As you guys know, I've stepped away a little bit from, not a little bit, I've stepped away a lot from more full coverage concealers and foundations. But that said, I really, really like this concealer. I think it works great. I think they nailed the undertones with their range. Obviously, I can't speak to the entire range, but for me, I was pretty surprised by how well these just worked on my skin. I don't feel like they're shifting really yellow, really pink, anything like that. They just seem to be pretty neutral, which is quite hard to find in my opinion. It doesn't look overly dry or overly cakey or anything like that, especially when it's powdered, because there are some concealer formulas that are just, they're a little bit thicker, so when you apply them underneath the eyes and then you put powder over top, it looks really textured, really thick, and just kind of cakey. So that, not at all. Like this really kind of, it doesn't feel like it's sitting on top of the skin. It just looks good. So I really, really have been liking the concealer. Then we went into the foundation, which I almost didn't buy the foundation because I'm so particular about my foundations, as I'm sure you guys are aware. And again, I like a really dewy foundation. I like a more sheer coverage. This is a weightless, soft, matte, hydrating foundation. Anytime I see the word matte, I'm like, peace. But I actually feel like this foundation is not overly matte or overly drying. Same thing with the undertone in this one, as I was mentioning before. I'm really surprised by how neutral it truly is. On camera, I mean, I think, you tell me. On camera, I feel like the tone matches really, really nicely. When I step out into daylight, there is maybe just the tiniest little bit of pink to it. But otherwise, tone is just like gorgeous. I think they really, really did a good job with having some good neutral shades. The coverage of this guy is really great in my opinion. It covers quite well, so if you are somebody who likes a fuller coverage, you probably will like this foundation, but I still feel like it looks very skin-like. Same thing with this guy as the concealer. I don't feel like it's sitting on top of the skin. I feel like it is just kind of like a nice thin layer that feels like, I don't know, it doesn't feel cakey or thick or uncomfortable or anything like that. Because I do have dry skin, I have texture and stuff like that, so I kind of stay away from mattes because I feel like they emphasize that texture a little bit and that dryness, but I feel like that doesn't really happen with this foundation. I don't find myself feeling like I look really dry or textured or anything like that. The one thing I will say about this one is, for me, it wears incredibly well. Over the past couple days, I've been wearing it for like 12 to 14 hours kind of thing, and it actually looks really, really nice at the end of the day still. Usually I kind of have certain areas that rub off a lot quicker than others, but I felt like this guy held on pretty well. It didn't look drier throughout the day. It maybe got a little bit dewier, but definitely not like an oily kind of look or anything like that. I just felt like it looked almost better the longer I wore it. But yeah, it just wore fantastically well. So I'm actually really liking this foundation, which I did not think I would, because it is fuller coverage. It is a soft matte finish. I have been liking it sheared out a little bit more as well. So I shear it out the same way I normally do with like a moisturizer or serum or whatever. I feel like I actually might, this is bold. This is a bold thing to say. I feel like I actually might use this foundation for my wedding makeup. I don't know what to say, man. I don't know what to say. It photographs beautifully. It wears really, really beautifully. I think that might be my wedding foundation. I don't know. It's crazy. Okay, the next thing I bought was the little highlight and contour stick. This guy, I was like, this is really iffy when I first took it out of the packaging and looked at the color, because even just that swatch, I was like, dang, that's dark. And then when I looked at this side, I was like, at first I was like, did I get the right shade? Because this seems to me like it would be more for like a medium kind of skin tone, like a little bit more, you know, tanned and beachy than me. Here's the thing. Every time I apply that contour, I'm like, no, this is not good. It almost looks really like red, kind of like pink almost when I'm buffing it out. I do feel like when I let the contour settle, like when I let it wear, I really like the look of it. Like, I don't feel like the tone looks off. I don't feel like it's too intense or anything like that. I feel like it just looks really, really nice and kind of like tanned. But every time I apply it the first time, I'm like, this is not good. But I end up really liking it. Like right now, I like the look of this. I don't feel like the color is really off or that it looks too dark, too orange, too red, anything like that. So I actually do quite like that contour, even though every time I put it on, I shit my pants and I'm like, what have I done? And same thing with the highlight. I just looked at that and I was like, oh, this is so yellowy. Like, this is gonna look so gold on my skin. I'm not sure how it would work for very, very fair skin, but I think they do have a different shade for people who are very fair, because the way that they have their foundation and the contour sticks and the concealers kind of set up is into like groups. So they have like one group, which is like very fair skin. So they have a contour stick that coincides with that group. Then they have the next level, then the next level, then the next level. And they have kind of all of these products grouped together, which is so smart. So I'm assuming that the lightest shade group has more of like a pinky undertone rather than the gold, but I feel like the gold actually works really well. I've been surprised basically every step of the way with this brand. But yeah, I just feel like they just absolutely nailed the undertones of things. This is definitely a little bit more of a glossy highlight, which for me, magnifique. I prefer something that has a little bit more of that dewy kind of glossy texture, especially paired with that foundation, because it is more of a soft matte foundation. I feel like that highlight works really, really nicely, kind of paired with it to make it look a little bit more kind of youthful. Arrow just made such a weird noise. So I've been really digging that one as well. So you guys, that's my thoughts on all the products we tried today. Overall, I'm really impressed by this first launch from this brand. The skin products, I just adore. Like, I'm so excited to see what else they come out with. I'd love to see some cream blushes and stuff like that from them. I think they did a really, really good job with their shade range. I think that it's laid out in a way that just makes sense. So I applaud you for that. So those are my thoughts. If you guys have picked up anything from this brand, I would love to know what you've tried out and what your thoughts are. If you like it, if you're not loving it, let me know, man. Also, how could I forget? Episode 2 of our podcast is out. I will leave a link in the description below if you guys want to check out our podcast. We have fun. We like the podcast. Maybe you will too. I don't know. Okay, bye.